Well, hello. Can anyone see me and hear me out there? This is the RPG Pundit, the final boss. And this is going to sound really stupid. It really is. But, I said we're having Kevin Siembieda here tonight. And he was here. He was here up to like 10 minutes ago. He had come in early on time to make sure to do the sound check and see that the video was working and everything was fine. And then I said, well, it's the last chance to, go to the bathroom or refill your coffee or whatever. And I went downstairs to refill my coffee and come back upstairs. He's gone. I don't know what happened. He's not in the studio anymore. So I'm hoping, Kevin, I don't know if you're watching this right now. If you are, I can send you another link or something like that if you need it. But I mean, it should be in your email, right? I just sent it your way. All you have to do is click back there, and you'll come back onto the studio. Now, some people have been saying that there's like really strong, bad storms in Michigan. Or something like that, snowstorms, I suppose. I don't know. It could be that his electricity got cut off or something. I have no idea. All I know is I went downstairs for 2 minutes. I come back up here, he's gone. It's crazy. So, oh wait, he's back. He is back. We've got him, guys.
What the hell happened?
Well, I'm glad you're back anyway.
Yeah, it took a bit, something with Google, and I lost my Gmail, and I tried to text you by my phone, or not text, but email you with my phone, and that didn't work either. And it's like, what the hell?
Oh well.
So,
okay, well,
but I'm here.
Okay.
Sorry,
you're back now. You're back now. So I guess we will. We're going to get started here in just a little bit, but as you know, with these live streams, it usually takes a little while for the audience to filter in. I think we've got 18 or 20 people watching right now, but I'm sure there's going to be more coming in the next little while. So we're going to start off a little slow. For those of you who are watching, who have just come in here, we are doing this live stream. I assume that Kevin needs no introduction because he is one of the founding fathers of the RPG hobby. He is the boss of one of the longest running and most successful RPG publishers, Palladium Books. He has created an incredible number of fantastic RPGs within the context of his company, and some of the people that have worked for him have become huge stars in their own right. I've had on this show or on its previous version, Inappropriate Characters, I've had quite a lot of the early creators of D&D and people like Rob, there was Rob Kuntz and, several of the guys that played on Gary Gygax's or Dave Arneson's table. But there's, to me, all those guys are incredible. But Palladium Books were, when I was in my teens, I played Palladium as much as I played D&D. Those were the two main games that I played. I would play Dungeons and Dragons, and I would play the first Palladium game I got was Robotech, and then after that TMNT, and then of course Rifts, and I had a whole bunch of all the Rifts books. I still have them; they're downstairs. And I ran a couple of campaigns that lasted for years and years. Right, so this was to me, I was always a huge fan of Palladium. And it's really remarkable. And there's my publisher right now, Mad Scribe Press, who publishes my books like Baptism of Fire and Sword and Caravan. And he's saying, I love Palladium games. I think I have nearly every book that Kevin put out. And Matt Scribe is a really good publisher, so I'm sure he took a bit of the Palladium style into his publishing techniques as well. So I'm just crazy happy to have you here, but actually you are not, in a way, the main guest of this evening.
Which is fine by me.
That's right, and for me too. And you are here because, like me, both of us were friends of Erick Wujcik, who would have turned 75 years old tomorrow if he was still around. Erick Wujcik was one of the writers for Palladium, for the Palladium company, and he had made several remarkable RPGs, including some of the best ones that Palladium put out, like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which was very revolutionary at its time, right? It was you don't think of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as something that's going to be revolutionary, but he made it so because he developed an entire system for how to generate the mutant animals, right? And then like the ideas that he had in some of the subsequent books as well, After the Bomb and stuff like that, were stuff that nobody had done before, right? He was a complete innovator. And he worked also on Ninjas and Super Spies, Mystic China, which of course taps into the reason that me and him were such good friends, because both of us he was basically very obsessed with Eastern mysticism. And we had so many conversations about that.
Yep.
He was just so creative and yet creative in the productive sort of way. Like he wasn't going to go off into shooting for some kind of really bizarre thing. He was always doing it in a way that was coherent, and that was part of what he taught me about how to make games. We're going to be talking about each of our, but I mean, obviously I'll be giving much more emphasis to Kevin, because you guys hear me all the time. If you're my audience, some of you might be here because you saw that Kevin was going to be here. But either way, that means I'm looking forward to hearing some of the stories that Kevin has about Erick. I do want to start though with a short kind of, for the people who maybe didn't know him as well, a quick brief about who Erick Wujcik was. So he was one of the an early gamer, let's say, right? And he was he had started as the head of the gaming society at Wayne State University, and I believe that was where you met him, right?
Unfortunately, I look frozen on this screen. I don't know what you guys are getting.
No, it's okay. I think it's all right. Let me see if is the audience getting this? Yeah.
Yeah, I just had a pop-up that says page unresponsive. So as long as you can hear me.
I can hear you. I can see you. I think the audience can. They'll tell us in a second here.
Yeah, so we got a big storm going on here.
Yeah, I heard about it.
It may be affecting us. I don't know. I'm moving now. So
it looks good. It'll come and go, I'm sure.
So I met Erick through a friend, Julius Rosenstein, who would also come to work for me. And Julius was a member of the Wayne Wargamers, and so was Erick. And they met. Julius was riding a bus, and so was Erick. And Julius was reading some science fiction book. And Erick's like, yeah, I love this book. And they just started talking, and he got him into the Wayne Wargamers. And
we have lost him, I'm afraid, guys. I'm sure we'll get him back here in a little bit. In the meantime, I will tell you guys that this live stream, it's not monetized when it's going live, and it is not. It doesn't have any sponsorships or anything like that. So if you want to show your support to my endeavors in long form interview journalism, I guess you'd call it, then feel free to give me a super chat. If you give me a super chat, I will read out what you have, what you've written. If you have a message, unless it's going to get me banned from YouTube, obviously. So you know, but you don't have to do a super chat for me to read a message. I will be looking at some of your messages, and hopefully there'll be some that'll be pretty good, or for your questions for Kevin or for me, I guess. And we'll be, you know, I don't just deal with super chats. Okay, so but if you want to help me out, if you want to help the cat toy fund for Domino, then send me a super chat. I'm looking through your comments here right now. Mad Scribe says he didn't know much about Erick Wujcik, but was awestruck by his Wikipedia page. And after the bomb, Erick Wujcik is the bomb. Snake Oil, Sean says, Robotech RPG was the first book I owned. Well, you know what? The Robotech book was the second book I owned. The first one was the Red Box D&D, you know. So it's pretty wild. See what else we've got here. If Wujcik hadn't written Ninjas and Super Spies, I don't know where I'd be. Hopefully Kevin is going to come back pretty soon here. What was my first game written by Erick Wujcik? I think that probably would have been TMNT. Great guest. Thanks, Pundit. $5. So let's hope the guest gets back here pretty soon. Fortunately, I've got something going on with my throat here where I've got it's not constant, but I've got some kind of a pain in the lower side of my throat here when I talk. So if you've noticed me looking a little strained, it's probably because of that. But it's only at certain moments. If I am, I guess it might be something with my vocal cords, because some certain times when I say something, I suddenly feel this shooting pain down my neck. But anyway, sorry, I don't know why I'm talking about that. I guess I'm just trying to buy some time and see if we can get Kevin back. In any case, I guess I can carry on with details about Erick Wujcik's life. So he ended up working for Kevin at Palladium. He made the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game. He made Ninjas and Super Spies. He made After the Bomb. He also worked occasionally for other companies. He did a couple of Paranoia supplements. And probably the most significant thing from my point of view of what he did is that he created the Amber Diceless role-playing game, right? Which was one of it was my favorite game that he ever made. And it was one of the most influential games on me ever, right? Because Amber Diceless is a system based on the Amber novels by Roger Zelazny, where you're playing these very powerful immortal dudes and a feuding family. And he decided to make it a diceless game. And so instead of playing with dice rolls to determine things, you had rankings, and it was a comparison of rankings, a comparison of what actions people are taking, how they are doing things. There was a kind of a luck mechanic, but it wasn't a random luck mechanic. It was that your character could be lucky or unlucky, and he would be that, one way or the other. And so it became very simple. It was a simple system, but it had incredible complexities. All right, I think we got Kevin back here. Hello again, Kevin.
I am so sorry. I have no
okay.
idea what the heck is going on here.
It could be the storm, I suppose, but
yeah, I imagine. I've never had this problem. I've used StreamYard before. I have never had this problem. And I don't know.
Well, while you were out, I was just giving a bit of detail about Erick's curriculum, the books he produced for you. I was mentioning Amber Diceless, which is, I first met Erick because after Erick had written Amber and Shadow Knight, he started doing the Amber Zine. And you had to write to get, if you wanted a subscription to Amber Zine, yeah, there we go. If you wanted a subscription to Amber Zine, you had to contact him, right? And so that's where I first got to speak with Erick, right? And we ended up, mostly because I became too chatty, I guess, but we ended up discovering that we had a lot of common interests outside of RPGs. And then he I was probably, at the time I was, what would I have been? I would have been like 18 or 19, right? So I was probably just annoying to him more than anything, right? But I had a whole bunch of conversations about how playing Amber Diceless forced me to change the way that I played the way I ran games as a DM. And his advice in both Amber and Shadow Knight about how to be a DM were just, like that alone, if you never play Amber or Shadow Knight, the advice of the game in terms of how to be a DM was priceless, right? And so I got to talking to him about that, and he was telling me about how he DMs. He was giving me more advice. He was giving me stuff about how to do game design, how to think about games, and so he became basically my mentor.
That's nice. Yeah, I mean, so I mean, it was crazy. I mean, similar thing with me. I mean, Erick was just a very, very smart, very friendly, gregarious guy.
I was tremendously smart, not very arrogant, right? But
no, not at all.
But super smart,
Oh, I absolutely, absolutely. And he was a genius at game design, and genius on a lot of things. And he that was the thing is we just got talking about stuff, and we started talking about everything, game design and comic books and movies and history, because I love history. He loved history. And next thing you know, we were becoming fast friends. And he had me do art for his first self-published game, which was Sector 57. Which was a fun little science fiction game. And then, it was funny because the gaming industry was really just in its infancy. We're talking 1978, 79.
Yeah.
And Erick was part of the Wayne Wargamers. But the Wargamers, they had limitations of what they could do and what they wanted to do, and you had to vote on stuff. And Erick had bigger ideas, and he's like, yeah, Kev, we should do a Detroit Gaming Center. And I'm like, yeah, that'd be great, Erick. And he, that's the thing. I think really both of us were kind of like each other's muses, and we certainly encouraged each other's madness. Like doing the Detroit Gaming Center, we didn't want to do anything small. So Erick and I, we would just wander and drive around Detroit trying to find a good spot. And we found this second floor, huge space. It was like 10,000 square feet. And it had various rooms and already, it was just really great space.
Oh, wow.
And that's the Detroit Gaming Center. And it was, and that we didn't care, right? It just, and it was available, and we brought in some other people. Erick was a great, unlike myself, Erick was a great networker. He knew everybody. And the next thing you know, we put together a board of directors, and we got this gaming center thing going. It was crazy. Yeah, go ahead.
If I can ask you, at this time, right? This was before you founded Palladium Books, right?
Yes.
So what type of games were you guys playing? And did you play at Erick's table? Did he play at yours? What sort of stuff were you guys running?
Well, it's funny. I assumed Erick had in all the guys, everyone he knew, Renee Vega and Matthew Ballant and Julius Rosenstein, for like 40 years, I thought they had been playing games and certainly role-playing games, D&D, forever. And I didn't really have a sense of gaming history at that time. Of course, there really wasn't much of any, right? And so right. we cut our teeth on the D&D box edition. And, so we were playing D&D, and Julius found.
Oh, he's gone out again, guys. Well, this is almost certainly because of that storm, I suppose. But we're gonna keep soldiering on here, I hope. And we're getting bits and pieces of Kevin, but I'm gonna keep trying to move things along here. So, Erick created this Amber game that was, from the perspective, like the amount of stuff I learned from him about game design was huge, right? Even though we never or hardly ever talked about that directly, because at the time I wasn't a game designer, right? When I knew him, I hadn't made any RPGs. When I first knew him, I was just kind of like, I was a student, right? I was in university, and by the time he passed away, I was by then a blogger and the owner of the RPG site, but I wasn't really a game designer, right? But indirectly, we'd had a lot of conversations that were related to this element. And one thing I was at that time was a guy who was understanding the theory behind game design because of my fights with the Forge, right? And he opened my eyes to a whole bunch of stuff. And the thing is, the Amber RPG is not unique completely, but it is almost unique in the sense that every RPG fundamentally is really just a variant of Dungeons and Dragons. Obviously, some of them are literally like the OSR, but others, if you're talking about a game that has dice pools or whatever, it still is a descendant, a twisted, weird descendant, you could say, of D&D, right? Amber Diceless was not. It was something that it was a completely separate evolution, so to say, right? Like as a mechanic. And it was almost a different type of thing, except that it had the exact same experience of the role-playing game and the elements of immersion and the elements of emulation, right? So it was really remarkable, because the level of creativity you have to do that, because it's one thing to be creative in the sense of thinking, well, here's D&D and I can do this other thing that's like D&D, but to do something that is so unlike D&D as Amber is, and for it to be good, right? That's the thing. Anyone, like the Forge, was making weirdo games all the time, but they all sucked, right? Whereas Erick, he was right there. He was the one who made the best indie game of all time, Amber Diceless, which was unbelievably successful also at the time, right? So I learned tremendous amounts from him. He was, after his time working in Palladium Books and Amber, he ended up working in video games, as a lot of early designers did. He ended up working for, at different times, Sierra and Ubisoft. From 2004 to 2006, he was the game design studio manager for Ubisoft China and Shanghai. And He was an adjunct assistant professor of game design at Hong Kong Polytechnic University between 2003 and 2008. We've got Kevin back, guys. We've got Kevin.
I am so sorry, guys.
It's
I don't
okay.
know what the hell's going on.
Is it just like cutting off at random for you? Is that what's going on?
Yeah. It just all of a sudden will freeze up, or you'll disappear.
That's got to be. I'm guessing that's got to be because of disruptions from the storm. Yeah,
it's got to be because it's just weird as hell. And
the entire eastern side of the USA is in a storm front. It's raining, but just 50 miles north, it's snowing. My goodness. I got it. There's somebody who has a question here. What should I be looking for to get my paws on his TMNT role-playing game? Where can Dirabit get the TMNT game?
You can get it directly from Palladium Books. It should be hitting stores this week and last week. I'm not sure how fast things will sell. I talked to a couple of stores that said that they had sold out almost immediately.
I bet. Yeah.
And the books are great. They look fantastic.
It's such a great commemoration to have it like on this weekend, right?
Right.
Look at that. So
well, and I want to point out that each of these books have 3 different books in them. Like this has the core rule book, and then Truckin' Turtles and Turtles Go Hollywood. This has Transdimensional TMNT, Guide to the Universe, and
that was so good.
TMNT Adventures. They're all magnificently colored. There's a great several tributes to Erick in the RPG book, and
that is excellent.
It's just, I mean, come on, the guy. We were so close that when he got sick, I was the last person he told, because he said it was more difficult telling me than it was telling his own mother. And I mean, that's just how tight we were. And part of it was like we when it came to like game design and just, I don't know, we were like linked, and we always got each other's ideas. And in fact, that's how TMT came into being, is that when the original writer who was working on it on spec missed the mark with what I knew needed to be in the game. Like the fact that you could create any mutant animals. Erick got it, and I had turned him on to the TMNT comic books. Yeah. And he, when I told him I'd gotten a license, his brain just immediately started to go. And he cooked up the BioE system. In fact, it was funny because he was doing all this stuff, and I'm like, Erick, this is great, but I got someone else designing the game. I have to see what he does. And I'm like, but this is awesome. So, keep fooling around with it, buddy. But I'll use it in something else, or you'll use it in something. It's genius stuff. And as fate would have it, that manuscript came in and it just missed the mark for me, and fell flat. And in fact, it was funny because Erick used to work midnights at the Detroit News. He was the computer guy there. And I don't mean, he did write an article about computers and stuff, but he ran the computer on the midnight shift. And so after like the initial hour, he had like 6 hours to kill before he had to do other stuff. And don't ask me exactly what it is he was doing, but because I'm not a computer guy, I'm not a tech guy.
No, me neither. I'm terrible at it.
Oh yeah, thank goodness. And that I'm not alone here. But I'd call him up at like midnight. Say, I look frozen. I assume you can hear me. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, great. And although I assume it'll drop anytime now. I don't know what the heck.
Yeah, there we go.
About philosophy, about religion. We talk about gaming. Am I gone?
No, you're back. You were gone for a second, but you're back now.
Okay, good. And it was just great. And we just loved gaming. We loved so many of the same things. Erick was sort of an amateur artist. And he loved doing maps, and he just had these great ideas all the time. And his ideas would fire me up. and my ideas would fire him up, and we'd just go back and forth all the time. It was just so much fun. And in fact, I think I used to drive my wife crazy. So Eric would come by. I'd be in the middle of some book, and Eric would come by, and I'd be outside with him. We'd like to walk and stuff, and we'd go outside as to not bother the family indoors, and I'd come in 3 or 4 hours later, and she'd be like, "So did you work out whatever problem you guys are working on?" And I'm like, "Oh, no, we didn't talk about that at all." I said, "Well, what did you talk about? So you worked on the next game?" And I'm like, no, we didn't do that either. And God knows what we were talking about, whatever kind of showed up. And I used to call it mental masturbation, because it was fun to just explore these ideas.
It's really interesting, because for me, obviously I was a lot younger than him. And when it came, and I wasn't, at that time, I wasn't a game designer. Now I am, and I've written, I've produced like 120 books, and I've gotten multiple bestsellers, and I live off of it now. But back when he was around, I wasn't, right? But all of that was in part thanks to a lot of what he taught me. But the same thing that you're talking about with regards to RPGs, me and Eric had that when we were talking about Eastern mysticism, right? And we were like giving each other like, well, I found this in this book, and like, how do we determine what, this is or that is, right? And it's like, it was remarkable, because I don't think he actually, I have a degree in religious history and I have 2 degrees, one in religious history, one in comparative religion. And I don't think he had any degrees that were specifically on that subject, as far as he never told me if he did, but I don't think so. Nope. But he knew so much about all of that subject, especially like Taoism and stuff like that. It was amazing, and it was really interesting how we would we would do that same thing, but in that other context of the other part of my friendship with him, which we were at a much more even level than RPG design, because he was up here. Oh damn, he's gone again. He was up here and I was way down there back then. I hadn't done anything. I'm sorry, Mad Scribe, I put your thing on the board, but we didn't get the chance to ask yet. But I will, as soon as Kevin gets back, I will ask him your question here. We are having a wild ride today. I think Eric is laughing somewhere, because this is the sort of thing that would have amused him, I really think so. He would be chuckling at this. My complete technological illiteracy is very well known, and so I can't pretend that that these live streams never have any problems. They almost always have something go wrong, but this is like really taking the cake, and I'm sure that somewhere out there Eric is chuckling about this. So I'm looking through your guys' comments so far, trying to catch up to wherever we may be. Mad Scribe says, interesting fact, my family's Scottish castle is detailed in Palladium's Compendiums of Weapon, Armor, and Castles. Gear says, great interview. Thank you, RPG Pundit. Love Baptism of Fire. Thank you so much. And I used to run the TMNT RPG back in the 80s. Great to see it back go OSR. Yeah, those new TMNT books look great, don't they? And I should comment, I was going to say, just in case any of you have never played this game, this is not Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the cartoon from the 90s, right? This is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the comics from the 80s. And if you don't understand the difference, the 80s cartoons were indie cartoons that were, they weren't like adult in the sense of, X-rated or something like that, but they were comics that were made for an older audience. They were serious comics, right? And they were pretty revolutionary at the time. Right? And then when they were turned into, the toys, obviously, then it turned into this kids show, right? But it wasn't like that in the comics, and the TMNT RPG came out way before the kids cartoon show came out, right? It was based on the comics, and the comics have like this really complex lore behind it of all these things, some of which appear in kind of childish like form in the cartoons. So I don't know if there's anyone who didn't know that already, but just in case there was someone who wasn't aware of it. So if you want to buy the TMNT books, keep in mind it's not based on the kids thing. It's like a grown-up version, I guess. They're all a sort of grown-up version. It still had moments of humor and kind of like a lot of real kind of Gonzo stuff in it, which is part of why I liked the TMNT comics. Yeah, all right. I just wanted to make sure everyone understood that. Getting that TMNT book as soon as I can, says the Rabbit. Violence is the difference, says Roy Goodman. Well, yeah, I mean, the TMNT comics were much more visibly violent. The cartoons were geared to children, says Holly O'Call. Yes, exactly. And the comics have a much deeper story. Correct again, Holly O'Call. So, okay. Erick Wujcik, as you guys can see, was like, to me, he was just hugely influential. I would not have become I might have become an RPG pundit of some kind, right? But I wouldn't have become RPG Pundit, the game designer, without that, right? I wouldn't have been nearly as good a DM as I am without him, right? So this is like, I owe a huge debt to Erick Wujcik. And it's very sad. We were talking when he finished that job in China, and was coming back to the West. We were talking about him coming to visit Montevideo, like, because he wanted to travel, right? And he had that plan, and this was like around 2007, maybe late 2006, early 2007, and it just never kind of came about. And then he got sick, right? So sadly, I never actually physically met him in person, right? We talked sometimes over the phone, sometimes on email. We're talking about then. Remember, we started this in the 90s, right? So, and I'm sure in the early period he was just kind of humoring me, right? But as I like to think that at least that by the later period of time, we had a real relationship. But I think we did, because I put when I took control of the RPG site, I made the official Amber Diceless forum on the RPG site, and he was the moderator, right? I asked him if he wanted to be. He said, "Oh yeah, I'd love to be the moderator." He was the moderator there, and that was from, I guess, about 2005, 2006, until he was literally on his deathbed, right? And he was never doing anything like, he wasn't, he would answer people's questions. He loved answering people's questions, and he would check. He would look at to make sure nobody was posting anything bad, right, or something like that on it, right? And he was literally doing that up till like 3 days or 4 days or a week. I don't remember exactly how long, but like very, very close to his passing. And that's the kind of guy he was. That's the sort of thing he did, and I guess because he was still able to do it, from the condition he was in, he kept doing it, and I would never have expected it. I would never have demanded. I never said anything that he had to do it or something like that, of course, right? And it was actually, obviously there were other moderators. There was no reason he had to be the one, but he wanted to, right? And that was very much the kind of person that Erick was. Okay, we're still hoping Kevin will show up again. I guess it's I was told that there was this storm and that it could cause a problem, and we just got to assume that that could happen. Unfortunately, I was hoping that you guys would have the chance to get more conversation in with Kevin, but maybe he'll come back. We'll see. And if he doesn't, well, we all understand, right? It's not his fault. Purse Place says Erick Wujcik also wrote Mystic China 1 and 2. Yeah. Well, those books are hugely filled with stuff that was based on real life research, right? Like those are not made up, right? Like that is real, serious research. It's different. It's not like Oriental Adventures. There was a little bit of research, I guess, right? There was somebody had read some encyclopedia entries and then watched a lot of kung fu films. But Mystic China is based on really deep lore of actual Chinese mysticism. Okay. So it is, it's really legit, basically, and it's really quite remarkable. It was one of the things, actually, Mystic China is one of the things that clued me into the idea that it could really be practical for me to incorporate stuff from my, let's say, my professional training and apply that to RPG products, right? Like the whole concept of making RPGs that are historically authentic, right? With the element of fantasy being that the world is the way that the people who lived in that time and place imagined the world to be, which is usually full of supernatural stuff, right? But that I could use real history. I didn't have to make it up. I didn't have to invent a pseudo Chinese world or a pseudo, England or a pseudo whatever, a pseudo Poland. That I could just say, well, this is happening there. It's in Poland. It's in England. It's in the Silk Road, right? And just go hard on the lore, right? And so people who are reading this, if you read Heroes and Villains of the Silk Road, you're going to get biographies. It's a big book of biographies of famous people who are really there with the real events, the real things that happened. But it's also an RPG supplement, right? That greatly enhances a Sword and Caravan campaign. Incidentally, if any of you haven't heard, Sword and Caravan is now a platinum bestseller, which is fantastic. And I'm pretty sure Baptism of Fire will get to platinum sometime pretty soon. Of course, Lion and Dragon has been platinum for many years now. So lots of good stuff there. Let me keep taking a look here at what people are posting. If you guys have any questions for me, I guess I'm the only option here right now. Hopefully we'll get Kevin back for another stint. Although maybe he's given up at this point. I don't know. We'll see. According to a web page I came across, Wujcik explained he made up a handful of martial arts from the super spies whole cloth. It's possible that there were a couple that he invented, but even there, the principle still exists, right? If you get what I mean, that he was making it in such a way that it was based on something that would have been credible, historically speaking. Not all my medieval authentic stuff is certain, right? And there's something I've in the Old School Companion 3, I have a section on secret societies, of the medieval secret societies. And some of those are based on real groups. And of course, there you have to kind of fill in the blanks because a lot of them were secret societies, right? So the Guglielmites were a real secret society. There were a lot of them here that were, right? The Colemen. But there are a couple that I made in the sense that they were something that could have existed, and that is tied to elements of truth. So even there, even if you are making something up, the kind of understanding that a guy like Erick had meant that it would be plausible, right? Even if it wasn't real. Let's see here. Eric lived in China. Yes, that's right. Though he was like deeply into China before he ever lived there. Sec here. Snake Oil says, somewhere I have a splat book that's just ninja weapons. It's pretty sweet. It's a Palladium splat book. D&D Dad and Son grew up on Palladium. I think you mentioned that to me in one of the times that either I've been on your show or you've been on mine. RPGPundit, what was your first Palladium game? What was your favorite Palladium book? Well, my first Palladium game was Robotech. My favorite Palladium book, that's very tough. That's very tough, actually, because I liked the entire Robotech series. I know that there were some people that thought it wasn't close enough to the cartoon or whatever, but I didn't care. The expanded world lore of it was very good. And I liked a lot of Rifts. There were a lot of great books that were there. Of course, the core book itself, I think, was great. People like to kind of crap a bit on Rifts, and like, it's infantile or something like that, or it's just too much or whatever. It's stupid, but it's not. It's actually genius, right? Like Palladium games were very clearly designed to have like everything that, especially kind of a mid to late teenager or guy in his early college years would want to play in terms of a setting of the game. It was always about cool, right? And that's a brilliant marketing strategy, right? If you know what is going to be cool for that particular demographic and you do it, it's gonna work, right? And Palladium and Rifts was like the ultimate version of that, right? It had robots and cyborgs and monsters and magic and mecha and occasional boobies, everything, right? Everything that a late adolescent would want, So I guess I really like Rifts Atlantis, for example. That was a great book. But it's very, very hard to decide exactly which one of the Palladium, like if you're asking for an individual Palladium book that was my favorite, it's very hard to say because I had so many that I liked. And we've got Kevin back. All right.
Do we? Am I? And for how long?
You're here again, yes.
I should.
And Mad Scribe Gaming has a question for you. He did a $10 super chat for it, so I'm going to go jump right into that before you disappear again. He says, Kevin, the Palladium system is so different than D&D and is a universal system that works well in all genres. How did you guys develop that unique rule set? And which Palladium game is your favorite?
That's like asking a father which child is his favorite. Come on, guys.
That's true.
I think early on, so actually I sort of do have an answer to which is my favorite. My favorite to write is Rifts because it's completely unlimited. And then my go-to to play is Palladium Fantasy because that's what really started the company.
That's right. And Palladium Fantasy first edition was great. Yeah.
Thank you.
And I was just talking about Rifts, about how, sometimes Rifts have been criticized for having being over the top, right? But from my point of view, it had everything. It appealed directly to the audience of mid to late 90s, teenage and early college years guys, right? Like it had mecha, it had ninjas, it had fighting, it had monsters, it had magic, and occasionally boobies, and all that stuff, right? That everybody who would have been my age in that point in time loved to play. And I played it for ages, right? With all my friends, right? When I was in high school, right? We were constantly playing Rifts.
So what I love about role-playing is that it's all about character and story, and you can do anything in it. It's like you're a film producer with an infinite budget because anything you can imagine, you can do. And I loved that about role playing. And so like from the very beginning, I wanted a game system that would allow me to do most anything. And again, in the early days, you had these two camps where like, role playing was very new. So we're talking 79, 80, 81, 82, 83. And I actually, at the Detroit Gaming Center, I threw a tournament called Magic versus Technology, because the big argument was that you could not combine magic and technology, that it just didn't work. And I'm like, no, of course it can work. It's like the famous saying about, technology taken to whatever heights is magic to people who don't understand it. And, and Eric and I were always into those kind of big concepts. And of course, he encouraged me to go ahead and do just that. And it was nice having the gaming center, because whatever new game came out, it would make it to the gaming center. Someone would bring it in. We'd get a couple hundred people every weekend showing up.
Wow.
And yeah, it was amazing. It was like a mini con every weekend. And so I got to see all this stuff, and I also got to see all these different styles of playing, because role playing is very personal. And so I, right in my own game. So I had this big game. I was running 26 people. Eric was running his campaign there and special events, and I had my Palladium. It was a hybrid. It started out D&D, and then a lot of so the system kind of grew out of what I didn't like in D&D and in other games. And part of it is I wanted a lot more flexibility. One of our slogans, it's sort of more than a slogan, is you're limited only by your imagination. And for me, my imagination is, like Eric wrote a great article in one of the early rifters called Think Big. And that was the thing. He and I thought big, and we like to explore concepts. When I was talking about, the mental masturbation, and we would just spitball ideas and spend 4 hours on it, sometimes a freaking week running with something. And then at the end of it, we'd go, that doesn't work. But it was fun doing it and figuring out that it doesn't work. And so we loved to explore the possibilities and push the boundaries of what people thought you could do. And at the time, D&D and Traveler were the two big games. So,
and if I may, we're talking about like around 1980, right? 81, that time. At that moment, D&D was kind of trying to go in the opposite direction, because TSR was doing the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and they were trying to codify D&D and make it more limited, because they wanted to make sure that third-party products would not that they wouldn't get in on their business, and also because Gary Gygax wanted to kind of screw Dave Arneson right out of the money, right? And so they made this system that was like really. It was like, these are the rules, you must play them as they are, right? Even though Gary never did that in his own gaming table, right? Because I know that, because I spoke to everybody who was in his gaming table that's still alive, right? But you guys, on the other hand, were trying to go in the other direction, right? You're part of like, and in the early period that we're talking about, there was just so much of this innovative movement, and I think that AD&D was a huge success, of course, but in a way, it was the moment that TSR lost being, it was still the commercial leader, but it lost being the creative leader, right? Because after that, it started being about like, well, you have to do it the way that we tell you to,
Yeah, and we were all about creative freedom. Although Eric and my style of playing, Pundit, did you ever actually play in a Wujcik game?
I did not, actually. I never got a chance to.
So
I've
Eric,
seen a lot of examples of it, but I never got to be there.
Eric and my style were really different. He was really all about clues and puzzles and figuring stuff out, and which is fine. I mean, I'm not saying it's good or bad, just different. And that's what I love about role playing too. It's very personal. So when someone says, well, I love this game, but not that game, I think, well, yeah, because it's just not your cup of tea. It's not that it's bad. It's just not what really sings to you. And so Eric was all about puzzles and things. And Eric is one of these guys who, like, if you were in a dungeon, somebody needed to be drawing the dungeon as he explained it. Because if you came back next game session and you didn't actually have a map, you were lost. Exactly.
You were screwed. Yeah. Well, one of the things that I learned from Eric, that is directly involved in everything I've done ever since, right? In terms of both DMing and in the products that I've written, was that this idea of what now in the OSR nowadays we call sandbox, right? That a DM should not be a guy writing a novel and then making the players go through the novel, or a TV show or something like that. It should be an open stage, and the DM is the clockmaker god, right? He's just put all the pieces in play, and then the pieces do their thing, right? And that was very much, from what I understand, was very much a big part of his style. Oh no, we've lost him yet again. All right, Eric, I was going to mention your quote here to Kevin. Everybody I know who was a gamer who was also in the military, whether it was the U.S. or Canadian military, which I'm sure I know some other military people too, but Israeli military, people like that, right? But everybody who was a gamer in any kind of military played Rifts. I'm pretty sure they played D&D too, but they all loved Rifts. Sentinels was a great book. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought Atlantis was just so creative, right? It was so just amazing. All right, we're hoping that we're going to get Kevin back again. Snake Oil Sean, I will get to your question as soon as he gets back. Roadhogs, yeah. Roadhogs was awesome. Azazel. Where to purchase Palladium books? Does anyone on the chat know the answer to Gear's question of where to purchase Palladium books? I'm pretty sure they have a website, right? I mean, Kevin didn't send me any links ahead of time, so but I would probably want to put his website on there. Snake Ocean says, I do really like Palladium Fantasy. Well, I'll tell you guys while Kevin isn't here that I liked Palladium Fantasy First Edition a hell of a lot more than Second Edition, because I think in Second Edition he wanted it to like fit with what had become the new version of the Palladium rules. But I think that the First Edition one was cooler. After the Bomb was fantastic. Yeah. No one of consequence says, I was an exception career Army, but only ever played D&D. Maybe it's an age thing. I don't know. I think people who are my age who are in the military, they definitely played a lot of Rifts. What I like about Rifts is how it combines so many elements, says Lix Universe. It gets pulpy in a way. It doesn't try to be confined within one genre, while not being a disjointed system of subgenres like the GURPS. Space Zeus, thank you so much for the $10. Same thing to you, by the way, Snake Oil, $10. That's lovely. I appreciate it a lot. Played Rifts, TMNT, Heroes Unlimited, Robotech for years and years. Yeah, I mean, same with me, basically. They do have a website with an updated store. Okay. Gonna have to try to find it. You can always ask your local gaming store if you have one, says Maliki, because Palladium is available through Alliance. Yeah, they're old school, so their books actually end up in game stores still sometimes. I don't remember if Kevin was the author of Recon, but Recon was definitely, or rather Advanced Recon, I think it was called, was a Palladium game. I'm trying to remember, was that him or was that Eric? Take a look here. Oh no, Revised Recon it was called. So Erick Wujcik designed Revised Recon. That was Eric who made it, according to Wikipedia at least. Matt Scribe says when they killed Osama bin Laden, he had D&D books in his room. Did he? I've never heard that before. I roll to disbelieve. Legion of Myth says they forced me to play Rifts when I was in the U.S. Air Force. I never liked Rifts until recently. D&D Dad and Son says, when I ran the heck out of Rifts, my older brother was a juicer, my younger brother was a glitter boy, and later a dragon. Well, you know what's funny is that we had I ran a Rifts campaign for years and years and years, right? And two of the most memorable, like that we had, there was definitely somebody who played a glitter boy. There was someone who played a dragon. There was somebody who played a juicer. But like two of the most memorable characters that were there, one was a vagabond with domestic skills and candy bars. And another one was a rogue scholar, which was actually my character that I played when other people were DMing. You know, they were really interesting because they didn't have all the big powers, you know. And that was like that range of power level was one of the great characteristics of Rifts. Well, the game Recon, okay, so Joe F. Martin is the designer. It says, I'm guessing that's about Recon. So the game called Recon was from 1982, which was a miniature war game. And Wujcik designed the Palladium book, Revised Recon, which changed it into an RPG. Kevin says he's working on trying to get back again. Okay. All right. Well, we've got to be patient. No one of consequence. $5. Domino Tuna Fund. Thank you very much. Domino thanks you as well. I don't know where she's still outside probably because I forgot to like bring her inside before I started filming. So my door is open out there and she's probably still hunting things in the dark now. It's 10 p.m. here. So, oh, we just about got him here. All right. You are back, Kevin. You know what? I was going to say somewhere Eric is laughing about this. Yeah.
For sure, because he was a computer whiz.
Yeah.
He was a big advocate of computers and the internet and all that stuff. And plus his favorite saying was always, oh yeah, it looks like I've got some weird thing going on. I think it's Wayne trying to look into it to see what's going on my computer.
Okay.
But I can see him in. I texted. I kept hitting Google. It wouldn't freaking open.
Well, you're still coming through.
And well, for how long? Hopefully for longer than 5 minutes. But yeah, and his favorite saying was, "Yeah, it's all good. It's all good." So it's all good, but it's not all good. I feel bad for everyone who's looking forward to this. I was looking forward to this.
Well, I think everybody's still enjoying it. We've got 53 viewers right now.
Oh, that's good. Hopefully,
Sean had a question for you. He says, Kevin, who decided to expand SDC into an added stat in the later games when it was more like armor points in Palladium Fantasy?
But that was me when I was fooling around with superheroes. So you see it. I mean, come on, right now. I mean, look at any John Wick movie. What's his SDC, man? You know, he's got to have physical SDC. I wish I had called it something else, because I think that's what confuses people, because you have SDC for armor. And then the whole thing was a combination of, I was working on Heroes Unlimited, and Ninja Turtles would be coming soon. And then Kevin Long, that came a little later. I guess I was already a boxing fan, and I would watch a lot of movies. And so SDC, the concept of SDC is the classic, it's just a flesh wound, or when a guy falls out of 5-story building, like in Die Hard, or in John Wick, what was it, 10-story, 15-story, he bounces off an awning and hits the concrete, but I'm okay. I mean,
SDC. Yeah.
You know, it's like, come on. In John Wick, was it 2 or 3? I think it was 3. He gets hit 3. Yeah, Parabellum. He gets hit by a car twice. And it's like one of the opening scenes, and he like walks it off, and it's like, come on, guys. But that's sort of the concept behind SDC was, if you watch boxers, you know, if someone punches you or me in the gut, Pundit, we're going to bend over and be wheezing. But, you know, you punch a boxer in the gut, and he just smiles at you and cleans your clock.
Yeah.
Because it's not hit points per se.
Yeah.
It's physical endurance. It's what I called physical SDC. Mm-hmm. And that was the concept of it, that in addition to hit points, you could, you have SDC, and you weren't necessarily killed with that first punch or being knocked out of a car or whatever. And that damage first came off your SDC and then your hit points. And you know, you could argue it's an unnecessary level of, you know, it could have just as easily been hit points. But in my mind, it was something different.
Well, I get that differentiation, yeah. Space Zeus, $2. Thank you very much. He says, because of course you played the Rogue Side. When you were gone, I was talking about my days playing Rifts, and you know, I DM'd mostly, but when I was a player, I had a character who was a rogue scholar, as opposed to like everybody else in the party who were like, you know, dragons and glitter boys and things like that, you know.
Juicers, yeah.
I like the
and that's what you know, I wanted, so I'm a comic book guy. I'm sort of all kinds of guy. I love TV shows and movies and plays and live theater, and you know, I used to watch soap operas with my mom when she was fighting cancer, and you know, it's a whole different kind of storytelling. But I got ideas from that on how to run my 26 players and how to design games. And one of the cool things that Eric and I did is we pulled ideas from everything, whatever worked. You know, if we saw something and went, hey, I can turn that into a mechanic, you know, we did it. And we're always bouncing our ideas off each other. And so I appreciate that comment.
Yeah, First Place says a broken up interview beats no interview by a mile. So yeah, I appreciate your efforts to keep coming back.
I'm trying, guys. Mm-hmm. So you know, everything gave us ideas, and I think you just lost me.
No, I'm here.
Okay, because I got my page unresponsive thing.
So you might go out in a moment here. I don't know.
So yeah, maybe. Hopefully not. We'll see. And I just don't understand what's going on. It's got to be something with what's going on here.
I guess so.
But you know, so everything just gave us ideas, and Eric and I were just into let's explore the pot.
Oh, he's gone. Oh my. Critics of Palladium complaining about SDC and MDC, but I thought it was brilliant. Yeah, I thought so too. I think it was a clever way to handle, you know, giant robots, and like, because otherwise you'd have guys with katanas, you know, destroying glitter boys or something like that, you know. David Thompson says his first Palladium game was Fantasy. It was similar to AD&D, but we ditched it for Palladium Fantasy. Well, yeah, Palladium Fantasy had some really interesting classes and magic. The all of that was, I thought that the magic was in some ways a lot more interesting than the Vancian magic. Armor rating, yeah. Mad Scribe says the Anchor RPG uses hit points and also stamina points that act like SDC. MDC gets crazy. It's like a power scale difference between street level heroes and supers. Yeah, that's true. And with Rifts, I think one of the mistakes that sometimes people make is that they want to have everything all the time in Rifts, right? Whereas, it depends on what part of the Rifts world you're at and what's going on there, and so you could run campaigns where it's very street level, right? Like, if you're in like Chi Town or something, or you could have like really epic, high powered campaigns. Does anyone else think Big Trouble in Little China when Wujcik's Ninjas or Super Spies or Mystic China comes up? Well, a little bit, yeah. I mean, you could definitely run something similar to Big Trouble in Little China using Ninjas and Super Spies or Mystic China. But of course, like I said, Wujcik was really serious about his studies of Chinese mysticism and Kung Fu and all of that sort of stuff. So it's very interesting. That element of realism that, like I said, I've since then applied to my own RPGs. Oh man, something is off with my throat today. Pundit, do you ever smoke cobs? Yeah, I do. Corn cob pipes are pretty wonderful. I've got one right here, for example. This is a Missouri Meerschaum, which is the brand of corncob pipe that I would recommend to anyone. If you haven't smoked the Missouri Meerschaum, it's a totally different experience than a cheapo, Chinese-made corncob or something. I wish Wujcik had a hand in Rifts Japan. Yeah, I definitely think Mystic China was better. Eric is asking, Pundit, what hardware do you use? Just a cell phone or something more? Well, usually when I'm doing my regular videos, I use a cell phone. I've recently got a new one that is got a pretty good camera now. Not that I need it, because I'm usually just filming a table where my books are, and you see my books and you hear me talking from the background, right? But with live stream, I was using a webcam with my previous computer, and now I've got a laptop and I'm using that, which is why suddenly the room looks very different now than the last time I did this, because it's the camera has got a different angle, I think. So yeah, that's it depends. So like for these shows, I'm using a webcam, I guess you'd say, the built-in one of the laptop. Pundit definitely gives off. Oh, by the way, thank you for the $5 super chat, Eric. I appreciate it. Pundit definitely gives off J.R.R. Tolkien vibes, especially with his scarf and pipe. Well, I don't have the scarf right now because it's summer here. It's very hot. So you see me in a kind of pseudo Hawaiian shirt instead. Yeah, it does show a lot more of the room. I don't know why, but there we are. I guess it's just the camera, the angle of it. Purse Place says, you mentioned a short while ago it was 2,200 hours where you were at. May I ask where you streamed from? I'm in South America. I'm in Uruguay, which is 2 hours ahead of Eastern time. Adino the Knight, hello. We are talking with Kevin Siembieda, but I guess because of the big storm that's happening in the U.S., he's being cut off. He keeps trying to come back, which is very good of him. We hope he'll come back at least one more time now. So I guess we're going to see. David Thompson asks, how did you end up there? Well, I was in the early 2000s. I was in a job that did not require me to be in any one place. And so I was traveling to lots of different parts of the world. And I went to a lot of places that I really enjoyed, but when I got here, I decided that this was particularly a good place to stay at. And I haven't regretted it since. I thought I was only going to stay for a couple of years, but now it's been, what has it been? It's been 23 years now that I've been living here most of the time. Other people are streaming Snowpocalypse streams, LOL. David Thompson says, I have never left the UK. Well, I was at the UK, but that was a long time ago when it was nice. I'm not so sure how it would be nowadays. I'm pretty sure that if I was in the UK, I would probably end up in jail for some Twitter thing I wrote. Snake Oil Sean says 2 hours to Night of the Seven Kingdoms episode 2. Well, I don't think we're going to be another 2 hours here. We'll have to see. Well, the interesting thing is nowadays there are a lot of jobs where you can be a digital nomad. Back when I was doing it, almost no one was that, right? So I was way ahead of the game back in like 2001, 2002, 2003. You may be pleased to know TMNT Redux has streamlined rules thanks to Sean Robertson. For example, all skills go up 5%. Well, that's probably good, I guess. Yeah. It makes bookkeeping a lot easier for sure. I can understand this idea of like some skills going up faster and others slower, but I recognize that it mechanically can slow down, the time it takes for you to level up, basically. All right. So, anybody got any other questions for me while we wait to see if Kevin shows up again? Matt Scribe says, well, I have to go, but thanks for giving us a chance to have a limited interaction with Kevin. I'm a big fan of Sir. I'm also a big fan of him. And it was especially nice being able to reminisce about Erick Wujcik and the incredible contributions he made to the hobby and I guess to both myself and Kevin in our lives. And, I think of him very often. I've never stopped. Have you done a top 10 RPG stream yet? Do you mean like my top 10 favorite RPGs or something like that? I guess I could do that. I'd probably have to do it like with games that I didn't write, which is a little bit tricky for me. Oh, it looks like, yeah, okay, we've got Kevin back here. Once
I feel
again,
like the Phoenix.
Yeah, so really.
Hopefully this will work. So apparently my computer decided to do some crazy backup shit. Oh. And so it was using up like 100% of I contacted my my IT guy and he jumped in and was like, what the hell? So we turned off some shit. We don't know for how long. So hopefully we're good to go for a while now. Good. Time will tell. Mm-hmm. But we're not freezing up or anything, so that's promising.
No, it's looking good. We were, while you were gone, we were just kind of
I'm so sorry.
we're talking a bit more about the Palladium system, and people are giving their opinions on both SDC and MDC. Generally favorable. I know there are some people out there in the RPG world that do not like the MDC system, but it looks like most of the audience do. And somebody had asked if there is a specific website where people can purchase Palladium games, and if so,
yes. So palladiumbooks.com is our website, and we do have an online store, and you can buy stuff. We have the store. We redid the store earlier this year, or the whole website actually, and so we have special bundles. You can now buy PDFs direct from Palladium Books in our store. It's pretty nice. It's got its issues that we're still fooling around with, but it's good. People really like it. It's I think fairly intuitive website. And yeah, so like I said, you can buy any of our books there, including the Ninja Turtle books and all kinds of Erick Wujcik books.
So I've just linked it in the chat, and then I'm gonna, when we're done the live stream, I'll put it on the description of the live stream so that people will know where to get it.
I also want to mention, while we're talking about that, is the Palladium Books YouTube channel has a bunch of chats and interviews where I talk about the Detroit Gaming Center and Erick Wujcik and many of our books, and that's available too. But I love doing these chats when they work. I see myself still freezing up. So,
are you the administrator of the Palladium YouTube page, or is that someone else?
That's someone else.
Okay.
I mean, Palladium Books is the administrator, but I mean, I don't handle it myself.
Okay. Well, because I was asking because YouTube has this new feature called collaboration, which is that when we do something like this, when you're doing an interview about Palladium or something on someone else's website, YouTube channel, the owner of that YouTube channel can send a collaborator link to, let's say, the Palladium Books YouTube,
right?
And if they accept it, then that video will be promoted via that YouTube channel as well, and so that'll raise the number of views that the videos get. So
I wish I knew about it. Like, we don't have a great social media. We're trying to improve our social media presence and doing stuff.
Oh, and he's gone again. All right. Okay. Well, I'll see if the Palladium website is the Palladium YouTube is willing to do a collaboration. We keep getting on and off with Kevin here, but that's okay. He keeps trying. I really appreciate that. William says, I believe that Palladium SDC urban fantasy horror martial art books are some of the best. Well, I loved Ninjas and Super Spies, for example. It was great. And Beyond the Supernatural is a very good horror RPG. It usually gets overshadowed by something like Call of Cthulhu, but it was actually great. It was very creative. The creatures that were involved that they had in there, and the whole system of it was really good. All right. Well, I guess we're gonna wait for Kevin at least one more time here. So anybody else got any questions or comments? We didn't get around to asking if there's a UK distributor. Well, that's a good question. What kind of characters did Erick love most to play? I'll see about whether we can get him back to see that. Lix Universe asks, Invisible College Rome when? Well, I did a recent post on Twitter where I was saying that I've been doing a bit of research about Rome recently, so you can take that as a hint. First Place asks, when you play Palladium, what house rules, if any, do you like to use and why? Well, for one, I haven't run Palladium in quite a long time now. The last time that I did it, I ran a Rifts campaign. When would that have been? That would have been sometime around maybe 2009 to 2010 or 11. And I had somewhat streamlined the skill system, but that was basically it. Like in general, I didn't have much of a problem with any of the Palladium rules. Apart from that, it's sometimes I felt like having so many skills slowed things down, so I lowered it to a number of more compact categories where you'd have like like vehicle piloting or something like that would be something where you would have a base bonus and then or a base skill level, and then you could potentially specialize in specific things, stuff like that. So that was sort of what I did with it. I don't think there was any other change I made to it, really. Gear 377 says, Pundit, I have a question. If you're in charge of Dungeons and Dragons, how would you design it? Thank you again. Well, I'm not sure if you're aware, but I was a senior consultant on 5th edition D&D. And so if you're asking, like, if Wizards of the Coast or whoever, whatever big corporation owns Dungeons and Dragons, what type of version of Dungeons and Dragons I would make, it would be very similar to 5th edition, because that was a lot of 5th edition was very influenced by my kind of design philosophy, which I owe some of which to Erick Wujcik. And mainly what I was focused on there was making sure that the mechanics were set up in such a way that you did not have to have massive system mastery to make like an ideal character, so that like players who were meticulous buyers and readers of books would end up having characters that were vastly superior to somebody who had never played before, or someone who only played casually. And I think that was a big part of 5th edition's success, right? That and the advantage and disadvantage system and things like that. Now, is that the type of game I would like to run? No. The type of game I'd like to run is like Baptism of Fire, right? Which I was just using as a base for my laptop here. But but it is the game that if you want the game to be a success, then that's what you do, right? You make it something that is easy for casuals to get into. We've got Kevin back here. Kevin, we got a question for you here. What kind of characters did Erick most love to play?
Well, Erick, like me, was almost always the game master. And he had an affinity for, I think, wizards and sorcerers. But he played all kinds of stuff. As a game master, you play everything. So, but I don't know if he had any real predilection to any specific kind of character. I know I've played all kinds of things when the few times that I do play, I like to try a lot of different things. I think we both tended towards intellectual type characters. So, scholars, mages, clerics. I like them all. I mean, I've obviously, again, as game master, you play every freaking thing. And I know when I played characters, I tended to go for either sneaky characters or mages. And that's the thing too, is we played all kinds of stuff. Like Eric ran champions for a long time, and his D&D campaign he ran for like 30 years. He up until the day he died, he was running his D&D campaign. And I know one of the main characters in that was this nasty wizard. So yeah, we just kind of like experimenting. Again, like I said, everything. It's why does Palladium have, look at all these other game companies. They have like one major line, Shadowrun or D&D or this and that. And why does Palladium have, Rifts and Fantasy and Heroes Unlimited and Ninja Turtles and Robotech? And because we love everything. Everything excites us, Eric and I. We like to play and explore all the different possibilities, all the different types of characters and ideas. It was funny. I met a mutual friend a couple of years back. She was very close to Eric, and we were talking, and she said, "Yeah, the first time after Eric met you, she said he called me up and said, 'You got to meet this kid, Kevin. He gets it. He gets everything, and he excites me. He's got all these ideas,' and he was just so excited because I don't mean this in any kind of arrogant way, but it's rare to find someone who I think is just that open to new ideas and the possibilities of ideas and characters and stories, and that was me and Eric, and we knew lots of other smart people. Eric, as you noted, was genius level. I mean, he was Mensa.
Down we go again. Oh my. Well, never let it be said that the RPG Pundit encounter is plain in its format. There's always something weird happening whenever I do one of these. I'm sure we'll get him back again at least one more time. Well, thank you for that, Mad Scribe. And yes, Mad Scribe, I see, has already answered the question about Sons of Heaven. Mad Scribe is currently working with Rob Kuntz on his book first, and he got there before me, and then he's going to do my book. So we'll see when it comes out, probably a few months, we hope. But I'm glad to say that Mad Scribe, having looked at the manuscript, is very pleased with it. So, and I have to say, he's picking up really quickly on, like, because it's so hard with a science fiction setting that is in someone's head to be able to then make it come to life artistically, right? And he's been picking up on it really fast. So like I think we're already getting a good vibe of what the style of how it looks should be. So that's good. Thanks, Universe says, I had a question about Palladium, but I wonder where he lives in the U.S. as well. I remember that he's in Michigan, I think. So they're in the middle of a big storm. I don't know if that's the problem or if it's a problem with his computer, but there we go. Yeah, right now it's better known by its colder name, Hoth. Yeah. Sons of Heaven is a very interesting setting. Yeah. And some of you who had picked up some of the Pundit files, there were several issues of the Pundit files that were part of my initial concepts for Sons of Heaven. And so you have some idea of what it's like, but there's going to be obviously a ton more in the book. of material that was not there, including like, the rules, because the rules are going to be kind of based on Star Adventurer, but they're going to be slightly different in some ways. And obviously expanded to and modified to fit the particular setting, because Sons of Heaven is a setting. So we hope that it'll be appealing to people. And it's not a historical authentic game, but in a way it kind of is, because it's inspired by things like the Bronze Age collapse and kind of the Bronze Age, or the post Bronze Age in general. There's a lot of kind of influence of in Sons of Heaven from the books of Judges or Samuel, in the Bible, and it's going to be a very interesting setting, actually, for a science fiction game. Hey, Diversity and Dragons is here. We're getting hammered with snow here too. Well, here it's really hot, so I think I'd rather be here than there, though. I will see if I can get him to talk about those, Mad Scribe, and we'll see you later. Thank you very much for coming. So I don't know what else we could be talking about while we're waiting for Kevin to come back. If you've, I don't know, some of you this might be the first time that you've been on my channel at all. I do regular videos where I comment. I've got kind of 3 different categories. Oh, hang on, we've got Kevin back. Let's go to him. Hello, you're back again.
Can you hear me? So what I did, we have no freaking idea what's going on, and so if I look pale and different here, it's because we switched computers.
Okay, you look all right.
So do I sound all right?
Yeah.
Okay, because I'm not used to this computer.
No, it seems to be working. Hopefully, we'll keep you on here.
It's not the greatest picture. I have special lights and everything in my room.
That's okay. That's all right. I don't have any particular fancy lighting either. So, Mad Scribe Games has to go, but he wanted to ask a bit about for you to talk a bit about mechanoids and Beyond the Supernatural, which are 2 of his favorite games. Mechanoids is one of the earliest Palladium games, right? After
and that was actually an Erick Wujcik suggestion. So I had created the Palladium fantasy game. I was running it for years at the Detroit Gaming Center, and my guys had said this isn't even close to D&D anymore, as someone else pointed out earlier in this interview. And so I tried to sell it, couldn't sell it and to anybody. No one wanted to buy it at the time, the game system and stuff. And my guys convinced me to produce it on my own because I had some publishing experience. So for my game group. And of course, Eric thought it was a great idea. And I said, so here's my problem. I know exactly what I want in this book. I know how it needs to look. I know what needs to be in it. I know what I'm going to do for the cover, everything. But I don't have the money. It'll cost $10,000 and to do 5,000 copies. And Eric said, well, gee, Jeff, just do it in sections. And I didn't want to do that. And he's like, well, create something else. And it's funny because that's kind of a stupid suggestion, because can you just come up with anything? But we could, Eric and I. And so I did. I came up with the mechanoids, and I blew that by him, and he loved it, and he thought it was great. In fact, he did there's an adventure in the back of the Mechanoid Invasion, the original little Mechanoid Invasion book. Mm-hmm. That's by Eric. So he contributed that. And I did the Mechanoid trilogy. And I, as stuff would sell, I would put all my money back into the company. And we were starting to make some hay. And our first quiet mega hit was, or the hit, I should say, because Turtles was our first mega hit, and then Robotech, and then Riffs, were the weapon and armor books. And which were great. Back then there was no internet, and someone said, "Hey, I hit you with my Hercules club," and it's like, what the hell is that? Or hey, grab the claymore, and it's like, an explosive? No, the sword.
I know, they were an amazing resource. Yeah, that one and the one on castles, like that was stuff that today maybe people would just be able to look it up on the internet, right? But back then, that was fantastic to have that.
Well, and that was Matt Ballant. So we go to our very first Gen Con, and Matt's got his little weapon book. If I was in my room, I'd grab a copy and show it to you. It's just this little, like 8.5 by 11 folded in half book with all the weapons, just as you saw them in I can still see them in Weapons and Armor. And I had the mechanoids, and we for every 5 of those little weapon books that we sold, I would sell 1 lousy mechanoids. And I learned two things from that. One, that there was a demand for the weapon stuff, and 2, my book. So I thought, because I could produce it as a comic book style product, and again, that was sitting on my shelf to show you guys too. It only cost me like 32 cents to print, so I was selling it for $3.95, and I cannot tell you how many times people walked up to me, looked at it, and went, $3.95 complete game. What's wrong with it? Because it was too cheap. Mm-hmm. So I knew, I learned, because we learned everything by the seat of our pants. We didn't know shit. We were just figuring stuff out as we went along. Mm-hmm. And again, that kind of came with that attitude of, let's experiment, see what floats. So I realized that we really had something with that weapon book. And so when we got back home, well, actually on the drive home, I said, Matt, how can we turn this into something more like in that mechanoid style, the comic book format, but expand it? And he's like, well, I don't know, Kev. I did a ton of research, and there aren't a lot more weapons I can add. And I said, what about armor? You know stuff. Let's add armor to it. We'll call it Weapons and Armor. And that was our first quiet hit. We sold like 100,000 copies of that, and Weapons and Castles and Weapons and Assassins, Eric's book, in like 5 years. It was amazing. But it still, at the rate we were going, it would take me another couple of years to do Palladium Fantasy the way I knew it needed to be done. Mm-hmm. And I had a friend, Tom Bartold, one of my defilers, one of my gaming guys at the Detroit Gaming Center. He called me up one night and said, I got $10,000 to invest. Tell me why I should invest it in Palladium Fantasy and not buy land in Alaska. Mm-hmm. So I pitched him, and he said, okay. And that had us get Palladium Fantasy out. And again, Eric, because we were just always part of each other's lives, and very excited about what the other person was doing. Eric wrote the epic adventure Tombs of Jer City, that's in the original RPG. And Eric and I, Eric helped me hammer out some of the details. Like, he loved my alignment system, just loved it. Yeah. And he helped me fine tune the 8 attributes for characters and character generation. And then Like I said, we're just kind of cheerleaders for each other. And then, Mechanoids did all right. It was fun to do. And it helped me learn. I'm actually glad I couldn't do things the way I wanted to do from the beginning, because we learned all kinds of stuff along the way. That was really important. And I don't know if Palladium Fantasy would have been visually as strong and or well written if it was my very first game that I came out with.
Yeah, well, there's definitely a learning curve with that, right? Like,
first
game is going to have a lot of imperfections,
Absolutely. Well, I mean, if you look at the Mechanoids, I mean, people love them, which is nice, and it's got a cult following. But I mean, that original book, so I can't spell. Thank God for spell checkers and editors. I mean, we averaged 20 typos a page. That's not an exaggeration.
My goodness.
in the Mechanoid invasion. Yeah. With the possible exception of Erick's section. But so we learned a lot from the Mechanoids. And it was fun. I don't even remember where the idea came from. It just popped into my head and I kind of ran with it. And it was just, again, something different, a little too different. Like the big criticism I got at the time was that it's so negative, because basically you really can't win. I mean, the best you can do is Mechanoid Invasion Part 2, which is the journey, and that's infiltrating the Mechanoid spaceships like mice, and live in the walls and cause whatever trouble in between that you can for them, because the planet just gets devoured. But it was fun, but a lot of people thought it was too nihilistic.
Well, I mean, that was a pretty unique setting context for that time, right? Because I mean, otherwise, when you had Traveler, which was very different, from Mechanoids. So doing something like that was in a way very creative.
Thanks. And Mark Miller thought so too. That was a really neat thing. I hardly know anybody in the industry. Well, I didn't know anybody in the industry at the time, but I knew about Traveler because a bunch of folks loved it at the gaming center. And I get this, I forget whether it was a postcard or a letter. I think it was a little letter, and it was from Mark Miller, and I recognized the name, and I'm like, holy moly. Mark Miller of Traveler sending me a letter, and it was like, basically, hey, I picked up your book. It looks really interesting. There's some great ideas. Love the art. You have a lot of talent and potential. Keep at it. Wow. And I'm like, holy shit, this is fantastic. What a nice thing to do, right?
Yeah, that's great, actually, for a guy that was in competition with him too, like, in a way.
Right. So I love Mark Miller. He's a great guy, and I got to know him later and stuff. And you had mentioned Dave Arneson. I got to meet Dave Arneson right after he got ousted from Gen Con, and oh my God, he was like a walking open wound. He was just so tore up by it and so angry, and it was kind of sad, because I think he was really the sort of the role-playing part of D&D.
Yeah, and he was very much the co-creator. Like, I don't think D&D would have happened without him,
Oh, absolutely. I agree completely. And he never really had another success like that. It was just that perfect storm of those two creators.
Yeah, for sure.
And people sometimes poo-poo D&D, but I mean, for Pete's sake, it created a whole industry. So they did something right.
He's gotten a lot of vindication in recent years because of this. There was this documentary that came out called Secrets of Blackmoor that is just a remarkable documentary that shows you the whole story of the Arneson Gaming Group and the process from the Bronsteins to the early Blackmoor campaign and all of the parts that were his contributions to D&D. and that made a pretty big splash in the D&D world.
I'm glad, because I always felt bad that he didn't get the recognition that he truly deserved. Because that was always my understanding when I first got into it, is that, Dave Arneson and Gary Gygax were quite very much the co-creators, 50-50, and it wouldn't have been the same without him. By contrast with Ninja Turtles, I gave Eric all the broad strokes of what I felt the game needed. But he just ran with it, and I let him run with it because it was just pure gold.
Yeah, it was so good at, first of all, reflecting the Eastman and Laird series, but then being able to go beyond that, right? With the with the BioE rules and the way that you could generate a whole bunch of other kinds of mutants that are in there, and then all of the kind of additional things that came out of it, after the bomb and all that. It was.
Oh no, absolutely. I've told the story a million times, but if we're talking about Eric, it's worth repeating. Where, this I was starting to say before I was dropped out several times on you guys. I'm sorry. Where this other, so I knew what the Turtle book had to be when I first got done reading it. The second issue. I turned to my wife and I said, "This would make a great role-playing game, provided Eastman and Laird would let us do rules where you could create any type of mutant animal, because that's just tons of fun. I mean, the turtles are awesome, right? But being able to create your own teenage mutant ninja, whatever, hamster, lion, tiger, bear, dolphin,
and that's especially brilliant because, of course, whenever you're doing an RPG that's based on a comic book, a movie, a novel, there's always that problem, right? You're doing Star Trek, right? Well, do you get to play Captain Kirk, or are you just like some random ensign, right? Like, it creates all of that problem between what is literature and what is RPG. And the TMNT game solves that by having you can create another bunch of mutant animals, right? And maybe the turtles are around somewhere, but you're doing your stuff, right?
Exactly. Well, and Eric got that. In fact, it was funny. That was one of the big things, that the big creative differences I had with the original freelancer took a shot with it. He felt it should all be about the Ninja Turtles, that you would play the Turtles and April and Casey Jones. Yeah. And I said, yeah, that's cool, but people will get more excited about creating animals and creating their own characters, because, as you all know, Pundit, it's all about the world. You need to have this rich world that people can find their place in, and that the players can find their place and play these awesome, interesting characters. And you're right, that's where a lot of games fall short. TSR, the minute I heard them announce they were doing the Indiana Jones game, I went, well, there's a flop.
Yeah, unless that's so difficult, right? Because Indiana Jones is really just about Indiana Jones, right? So how'd you do that, right?
I mean, who else are you going to play? Short Round? Okay, he's kind of cool, but what about after that?
Yeah.
One of the
I worked on the Cubicle 7 Doctor Who RPG, and I thought it was a very good system and everything, but it still has the fundamental problem, right? That is somebody going to play the Doctor? And if not, then what's the point, right? If it is, then what are the other player characters going to be doing?
Exactly. So it gets really tricky, and Eric really understood that. Like I was saying earlier, he just right away we just started talking about, you could do this and you could do that, and the next thing I know, he's telling me how he's created this BioE system, and he tells me all about it, and he's play testing it, and I'm like, that's wonderful, Eric. It sounds fantastic, and I'll try to use it for something later. But I got to see what this other guy turns in first, and then other guy turned in a manuscript that I thought fell short, and so I'm like, Eric, what am I going to do? That I was advertising already Ninja Turtles and Dragon Magazine for like a summer release or something. And I'm like, I got nothing. I'm going to have to drop my current project and dive into this. And my head's just not there. And Erick's like, no, let me write the animal creation. I'll do the, and he tells me about the BioE again. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. And he's like, yeah, and I think, so Erick wrote that freaking game in 4.5 weeks.
Wow.
And I think the reason he was able to do it, because he would often be in some ways plagued by so many ideas. It's why we don't have like 300 games by Erick Wujcik, because his mind would go off on this new thing that caught his attention. Yeah. And I think because of the deadline, it was just sort of a perfect storm where Erick had taken 3 weeks off from work to go on vacation to write some, I forget what it even was. He had some other project of his own that he was going to be working on. And so he's like, yeah, Kev, I can help you out, but I can't write it all because I got my own thing to do. And I'm like, Erick, I'll take whatever you can do. He's like, great. I'll do the BioE. And he does the BioE. And he's like, yeah, Kev, I got ideas for mutant animal powers. Can I run with those? And we would talk about it. I'm like, yeah, run, And
it's very funny to me. Your impression of Erick Wujcik immediately reminds me of him, though. I think that by the time I knew him, he was maybe a little more serene than like I can see that this is like a younger Erick than the one I knew, right? But I totally the way that you're doing his tone of voice, right? It's just so much like him.
He did mellow out.
He mellowed out a bit by the time I knew him, but he still had that same kind of
energy and
energy, exactly.
Yeah. So he was just so excited about it, and so he went from, I'll do the BioE, and then I'll do in the growth chart, and then it was like, I'm like, Erick, this is brilliant stuff. Just run. And we talked about it over and over and over, and we play tested some of it, and he was play testing with other people. Mm-hmm. And it's like, let me write the animal psionics. And Kev, you know what you need? You need some adventures. And I'm like, okay, sure, go with it. And like he created the Terror Bears because his niece or his granddaughter or somebody was like obsessed with the Care Bears, and it was driving him crazy. So he did the Terror Bears. And the Sparrow Eagles. The Eagles were his playtest group, which was pretty cool. And but it was like he wasn't writing the whole book in his mind. It was like, let me write this section and then that section and this section, and he ended up writing like 90% of the
whole thing. Yeah.
But and it just, and like I said, it was the way our brains worked. We were like just in sync all the time. So when I was telling him, Erick, we need to be able to do these multiple different animals, and it's got to be cool, and it's got to, reflect the Ninja Turtles, he got it.
Yeah.
And where the other writer didn't, and most people don't. It's, there's lots of times where I'm working on a book and I explain stuff, or, on what I want to accomplish or where I'm going of things. And people just either don't get it at all or only get it to a point. And, Erick always got what I was trying to do. I always got what he was trying to do. It was great. Very seldom did we disagree on I don't know about that. We just always saw the same potential, I think. We took things in different ways. Like I was very interested in Amber Diceless because we were both kicking around at the time. We were both kicking around ideas for diceless games, and I think his system's great. Although I think it's really dependent on, we're an Amber shirt. Amber
yes, you are here. Yeah.
And my problem with the Amber diceless system is that it really requires a really good game master.
That's true. Yeah.
And I think an experienced game master. And so that makes it a bit more difficult. Yeah. And Erick was a great game master, although he thought me and Renee Vega in that order were like the best game masters he ever saw. But I don't know if I agree with that. Erick was pretty damn good himself. And I'm sure there's a lot of great game masters out there. But yeah, I mean, I was starting to talk about our style difference. He liked puzzles and that kind of thing. And he was amazed. He sat down in a bunch of my games and he's like, yeah, Kev, I don't understand it. You give them everything. You tell them everything about the people they're going to fight. Because he liked to have mystery and surprise and whatever.
Yeah, you wouldn't expect it.
But I think, again, this is my comic book background and maybe film. I would let my guys find they would have to find it. It wasn't just like I would just offer it up. They have to ask the right people, the right questions and get information. But yeah, they would know they're going up against this guy. They know his background, how he like pillaged a village and slaughtered every man, woman, and child, or whatever the case might be. They would know all this stuff. They know he's at least, 8th level or 10th level or whatever the hell he was. They just got these 6 henchmen. And Erick's like, I don't get it. They know everything. And yet the sense of suspense and tension, it's all there. And I'm like, yeah, Erick, because they know what they're up against. And it's like saying, hey, you got to go up against these bad guys. And by the way, their leader is named Darth Vader. Yeah. And it's that like, oh my God, not Darth Vader. We've heard about Darth Vader. We know what Darth Vader is. We have to face Darth Vader. It would create that sense of tension. So they would go in, really, hyped up. And of course, in role playing, you really see that old saying about, the best laid plans of mice and men.
That's right.
It doesn't matter how good your plans are. Something's going to go sideways. And, and it would. And then it's like improv time, man, to see where this is going. And I think I kind of embraced improv a little bit more than Erick, although Erick was freaking great at that too. Because we both felt, and I'm sure just from a little bit that we've talked, I get the feeling that you're the kind of game master who you want your players to have that freedom to go and do whatever it is they plan on doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Me too. Erick too. Renee also. I mean, it was just, it just makes sense because you want them to have the most immersive experience, and it's their experience. It's not about you, the game master.
That's right.
In some of the early days, it seemed like there were some sentiment of the players versus the game master.
Yeah, I think that was somewhat. It was kind of an inheritance from kind of wargaming, perhaps, right? Because I think that even though there wasn't really a game master in miniature war games, what sometimes would, like, the way that it evolved was with the dungeons, right? And the dungeons was fun. Dungeon crawling was the first part of real RPGs, and that was in essence, right, the army of the DM, the monsters against the players, right? But I think that it very quickly evolved into this other concept where really what should be happening is that the DM is like, in some war games you had the referee, right? The guy that would judge how things went, right? And he's not playing either army, right? So that's actually, that turned out to be the better model, because otherwise it's this very unbalanced antagonistic relationship, right? Whereas again, like I said, the DM in RPG play should be a clockmaker god, right? He puts all the pieces in there and then lets the dice fall where they may, right?
Exactly. And that's all I was doing with my villains, in conflicts, is I'm setting it up and take it away.
And that also forces you as the DM to have to create a real profile of what those villains are and what they really want, right? Because they're also, while the player characters are doing their thing wherever they are, those other guys are doing stuff wherever they are, and the DM has to be thinking about like, well, what does this guy want? How is he doing it, right? And then that's what you have him do, right? You don't have him do it in reaction to stuff that the players are doing, especially if the villain doesn't know about the players, right? So you're doing it because he has an agenda, right? Or they have, or whatever, right? So it makes, that increases the sense of realism.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think for me anyways, that's where Palladium's alignment system really becomes pivotal, because if you know what the character's alignment in OCC is, you can play him in any situation because the alignments are his moral code.
Yeah, and in a way, it's very simple, the difference between Palladium and kind of the D&D alignments. The D&D alignments are these very broad concepts, right? But in the Palladium system, any Palladium RPG I've seen, when you do the alignment section, you have, this is the alignment, and you have a list of what are the values of that alignment, right? And so that lets it be a lot more concrete in terms of what alignment actually means, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so what else? Well, let me mention Beyond the Supernatural, because I addressed mechanoids, and then whatever questions you have about Erick, I love talking about him. I miss him so much.
Yeah.
You know, when he died, there was just like this emptiness. And I feel like when I get some great ideas that just pop into my head, I feel like it's Erick giving me a little nudge.
Well, it's funny because, you know, I only ever had conversations with him either online or on the phone, right? And yet, you know, it's been very often that I think about him, you know, because I guess maybe because how much of an influence he was in both me as a DM and me as a game designer, that you know, it stays in my head. But yeah, I definitely, you know, it's something that it stuck with me, even, you know, like it's been years, and I think of him very frequently.
Oh yeah, it's hard not to. I mean, Erick was very much one of those larger than life people, and when you met him, he just left you with a lasting impression. He was just such a genuine human being, and a gamer through and through, man. He just you know, he made so much money on the Ninja Turtle source books and RPG, because I was paying him a royalty. That at some point he decided to go and like backpack through Europe for 2 years, because he had enough money where he could do it. Mm-hmm. He kept his apartment in Detroit and just went off and backpacked. And you know, when he needed to, of course, he had the resources to rent a hotel or, you know, bed and breakfast or something. But but part of that was, if he was in your neck of the woods, he would reach out to you, Pundit, and say, yeah, hey, I'm going to be in town.
Yeah. Well, you know,
put me up for a weekend.
He had plans. Yeah, I think it was when he came back from China that he was talking with me about how he would love to come and visit South America, right? And then just shortly after that, he got sick, you know?
Yeah. But he would call someone up and say, you know, and again, this is someone he knew through online or met at conventions. It'd be like, I'm going to be in your neck of the woods. You put me up for the weekend or for the week, and I'll run all the games you want. And he would, and because he always had things going on. He was always play testing on new ideas. So he'd run something that they wanted to play, D&D or Turtles or Palladium, something. Mm-hmm. And then he would, you know, run one of his experimental games that he was working on. Mm-hmm. And he just kind of did that all over the place. And he loved every second of it. He loved meeting people in person, loved running the games. And yeah, he was just a gamer through and through.
First Place wants to know what you think Wujcik would have thought about the TMNT Redux.
I think he would love it. I think he would absolutely love it. I mean, when we
did it, too, yeah.
We we kept it in mind, what Erick would like. And in our minds, the Redux editions are a tribute to Erick and Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, because three nicer people there never been. They're just great folks. Kevin and Pete are fantastic. Their success couldn't happen to two nicer people.
Yeah, really.
And Erick is just, Erick, salt of the earth, super gamer. So yeah, that's why we have a portrait of him in there. We colored the black and white Kent Burrell's piece. That was fantastic. Really captures Erick's likeness, and surrounded by the many games and ideas that he had. And
that's great.
No, I think Erick would absolutely love it, and I think he'd love the black, white, and red edition as well as the color edition, and that's one reason why we wanted to do it in color too. We truly wanted to make it a deluxe edition, make it everything that we couldn't make it when we originally did it. I mean, again, we were poor. I was poor, and Erick wasn't exactly wealthy, and I couldn't even afford typesetting. If you look at the very first book, what we did is Brothers typewriter. It was like a competition to IBM, and it had fonts that these are actually heads that turn and type, and physical, not digital, but it had fonts that kind of looked like typesetting, or at least we fooled ourselves into thinking it looked like typesetting. And so the first editions were what we could do, and Erick loved those, and we're working with nothing, and producing things that are selling like crazy. I think Erick would love to see the super clean, airy typesetting and the color, and some of the things reorganized and cleaned up, and like this vehicle sections a little expanded. And I think he would love the tribute art. I think he'd love seeing Sophie Campbell's rendition of the Sparrow Eagles and the Terror Bears. I think he'd love to see how other artists portrayed Doc Farrell and his other creations, because they're all in there. Everyone did some character or another that Erick created. Caesar and his weasels and the Terror Bears and all those guys. And that shows you too. I mean, just those characters are just so beloved. I didn't realize the impact that the Ninja Turtle RPG had. I mean, you would hear all the time from people who, I started with D&D and then went to Turtles or Robotech, or I started with Turtles or Robotech, and that was cool. But I didn't realize until we got the license back and we're dealing with Paramount, and I'm meeting people like Sophie and Cyril Naeli, who did the 2012 CGI Ninja Turtle animated series that was super popular, went on for like 6 seasons. But people wanted to use the Terror Bears and Doc Farrell and the Weasels all the time, the Sparrow Eagles. And Paramount was cool because back then, I was into creator rights, and Eastman and Laird were into creator rights. So anything Palladium specifically created, like the Terror Bears and Doc Farrell, etc., belonged to Palladium Books. Right. And so we'd have so Paramount and Nickelodeon would have TV people and comic book people come up to them and say, I got this great idea for an episode with Dr. Farrell or the Terror Bears, and they would say, oh, I'm sorry, you can't use them, we don't own them. And they're like, oh. like I guess the Dream Beavers, which that's one of the images. So when my partner Sean and I finally talked to Ciro Naoli that was kind of funny because it took forever to be able to speak to him in a Zoom call. And then finally we get him, and our Paramount rep was like, look, we got 10 or 15, 20 minutes. He's a very busy guy. And, we're like, that's fine. So we hit it off with him instantly. He's into horror films. I'm into horror films. Sean's a very affable guy. So we're talking to him about all kinds of stuff. And finally, like an hour into the call, Ciro's like, so what did you guys need to talk to me about? And we told him about the Ninja Turtle project and that we wanted him to do a tribute piece of artwork. Mm-hmm. And Ciro was like, I don't know. Like what do you think? And in our conversation, we found out that he couldn't find players. Like he discovered, and this shocked me. I keep hearing the story over and over and over. So many people discovered the Ninja Turtles through our game. Mm-hmm. And Ciro was one of them, and he couldn't find players. He said, but the character creation was so much fun. Yeah. And of course, all this is preserved in the Redux editions. That's why it's called Redux, not second edition or new or something. It's Erick's game just cleaned up, represented, remastered into something that's a beautiful masterpiece that it should have always been, and kind of always was, really. And so I was like, so I couldn't find anybody. So I rolled up like 80 characters. I just kept creating character after character after character. And he says, I was so disappointed when I couldn't use the Terror Bears. So I created the Dream Beavers as an homage. And so once we got going, so Ciro was awesome. He really supported our Kickstarters, retweeted and sent out to his followers, and he was fantastic. But at first he's like, I don't know if I can even do one. And then he's like, I'm going to do two. I want to do one with Casey Jones and the Dream Beavers and the Terror Bears sitting there watching horror movies. And we're like, yeah, man, go for it. And another one was one of the characters that he created and got into the TV series, but it was a character he had rolled up, which was the Neutralizer, which is a newt assassin kind of character. And, it was just amazing. It was amazing that our stuff inspired him. And he wanted to do that. And Sophie Campbell, who wrote gazillions of issues of the Turtles for IDW, Turtle comic books, she had all kinds of little homages to the original game, which she still plays. She plays Turtles and Riffs all the time, and a little bit of Palladium Fantasy. She too discovered the Turtles through our role-playing game. And she's got a band in the comic called the After the Bomb band, or like a punk band. And then she has her own weasels, which in her mind were Caesar's weasels. This little gang of 3 weasels and a whole bunch of other stuff. And it's like, wow, I never realized the impact that, the extent of the impact of our stuff, which is beautiful, and I'm sure Erick would be delighted. And we got all these tribute pages of art. There's like 17 tribute illustrations, splash pages in the back of the RPG collection, and another 15 in the Transdimensional Adventures. And it's, comic book artists, fantasy artists, gaming artists. It's great. And a lot of them have, at first we were afraid that Paramount wanted only like turtle art. And they're like, no, we want it to reflect the game, because it turns out they're fans of the game as well. Mm-hmm. It's amazing to me. It's awesome.
Yeah. So during one of your temporary absences here, we were talking a little bit about Beyond the Supernatural, and I was commenting that I think it was a really great horror based RPG that was very creative, and that it obviously in terms of horror RPGs in the 1980s, Call of Cthulhu sucked the air out of the room, right? Like, it was number one, right? And I've had Sandy Peterson on here. He was talking about Call of Cthulhu a lot. But I always thought Beyond the Supernatural was really great because it was, the Call of Cthulhu is limited to the kind of Cthulhu mythos, which is, very big and important, but it makes it a particular type of game, right? Whereas Beyond the Supernatural had a variety of different avenues that you could proceed with in that game. Mad Scribe here says, Beyond the Supernatural reminded me of Hellboy or the X-Files, both of which I think came after Beyond the Supernatural, actually. But so he wants to know what influenced the creation of Beyond the Supernatural.
Ghostbusters did not hurt the sales at all.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so.
So the inspiration, I think, for Beyond the Supernatural is I always had an interest in the supernatural and mythology and superstitions and certainly psychic abilities. I was always fascinated by that, and I read tons of stuff about those things in my youth and beyond. And actually, there was, if anything, was an inspiration. It might have been The Outer Limits.
Oh yeah,
and a great show that a lot of people don't know about called One Step Beyond.
I don't think I know that one.
And One Step Beyond fascinated me because I want to say it's a half an hour show per episode, but it might have been an hour. But it was supposedly true life stories of the supernatural. And as a kid, it came out, it was in the 60s. I just ate that shit up. and it was exciting and interesting and scary all at the same time. And then I have to admit, Beyond the Supernatural, while it was my title, I came up with the title, but the idea came from Randy McCall. So the original 1980s Beyond the Supernatural, Randy McCall, who is a big Call of Cthulhu fan and a big horror and mystery fan, he had this great idea for a modern horror book, and I loved it. In fact, he's the one who turned me on to ley lines. And that whole the megalithic stones and ley lines and dragon tracks and all that kind of stuff.
Which is a big part of Rifts also, yeah.
Because I just went, whoa, how did I not know about this stuff? Because I had read about Lemuria and Atlantis and all this other stuff, but somehow megaliths and the idea of ley lines being lines of energy, whether it's psychic or magical or whatever, I had not known about. And I mean, I knew about people who dowsed, dowsing and
sure,
but Randy introduced it to me in a whole new way, and I thought this was fantastic. And he spent a long time working on that book, and he read like 1,000. He was another guy like Erick Wujcik, was a fast reader. And would read copious amounts of stuff. I do too, but and for me, it's typically, I've read 300 or 400 books, not 1,000. And Randy, of course, would point out the best ones, which I would go out and buy and read, and like, oh yeah. And then Time Life actually did a really great series on the paranormal. And I read that, and that was pretty inspirational as well. So it was really Randy, and then he, I think it kind of got away from him a little bit. And I think one of the things that Eric and I were really great at were boiling things down and then presenting them in a dynamic and kind of new way, like ley lines. and the idea of lines of energy, mystic energy, and earthed energy. So he turned in the manuscript, and it was a little flat. It was just missing things. But we had talked about it so much. I had a very clear idea in my brain what the book needed to be. And so I took Randy's manuscript, like for example, his whole section on ley lines was like half a page. And I'm like, no, this is genius. This is what we really need to focus on. I took it and retooled it, and we came out with Beyond the Supernatural. And then Erick, of course, came up, which wasn't in the second edition, because I'm toying with doing just a fun sort of side thing. Erick came up with his victim characters, because he liked the idea of victim characters, of people who are, the classic, horror movie trope of, I don't know, there's something growling and strange lights in the basement. I know, let's go down and see what it is, as opposed to run for your life. Especially when you see a head rolling down the steps. It's like, oh, I wonder what did that. No, you're running for the hills, man. He came up with that great little subset that appeared in the original first edition, Beyond the Supernatural. And I was thrilled to get Richard Corbin to do the cover. He was a comic book legend, and I couldn't believe that we got Rich to do that cover. That was a blast.
Yeah, it was a very good book, and it's interesting how much of an influence it did have on Rifts. Even Laszlo Zand ends up in the Rift setting as well, which was very. I thought that was really clever, right? Because of course I had Beyond the Supernatural, and then when Rifts came out, and you see, oh, hey, he's there. That really emphasized the nature of the multiverse.
Thanks.
I've got a couple of questions here for me, apparently. Dr. Wender says, I recently read a literary reference to being bound by alchemical oath. Is there a medieval authentic equivalent? Well, the alchemical oath is a term that was, you see, just like almost any other kind of magical system in the medieval period, there was a concept that virtue was an essential part of the practice of magic, right? I mean, there was another side that was kind of, it was to differentiate hermetic magic from like demon worship or things like that, right? And so the alchemical oath is basically just this idea that certain alchemists had that they would make use. It's kind of like like the Hippocratic oath, right? That they would make use of their learning only for the good, basically. And at least that's as far as I know about it. What you read might be something else that has been invented later on or something, but in the medieval context, that was it. It was the idea, because if you read the alchemical text, you have to be purified internally in order to be able to accomplish the great work of alchemy, right? And your second question, I read Invisible College. That's my occult RPG, by the way, the Invisible College, it's called. And I love the theories and practices in general. What do you think about D&D's 8 schools of magic? Is there anything you like? How do you plan to do? Well, the schools of magic in D&D are kind of strange, right? Like they're named after terms that were used in real hermetic magic, but apart from maybe like divination and to some degree maybe summoning, they don't really, like, that wasn't something that really existed in the context of medieval magic. So it's something that they came up with mostly for mechanical purposes, and the place where they get really, like, they're in AD&D, but in AD&D second edition, they become more important because you can be a specialist wizard, right? And
right.
I think it was much more about that than it was about anything to do with being kind of authentic. I don't really blend that into my games. As you can see, my games have a magic system that's totally based on, the historical way that people use magic in whatever setting that game is set in, right? Whether it's in medieval Europe or in the Middle East or whatever. So yeah, I don't use that. And really, the magic system is one of the things about D&D that I don't. I think it's got its advantages. I mean, you can't argue that it's a bad system because it's worked really well, but it doesn't have the kind of flavor I like for Magic, and it's for one thing, it's way too reliable, for starters. So real Magic isn't that reliable, and it doesn't work that formulaically, and of course it wasn't based on historical magic. It was based on science fiction and fantasy novels, like especially Jack Vance, I guess. So there you go. That's my answer to you, Dr. Wenders. All right.
Well, I suspect the Satanic Panic probably had them wanting to keep arm's length from so-called real magic.
Yeah, that's probably true, but it's also that neither Gygax nor Arneson were, they had their areas of scholarly pursuits. Gygax certainly knew a tremendous amount about pole arms, but they weren't really, like historical scholars. A lot of what they got was influence that was from, mainstream books or TV or movies or novels, right? So, and it works, it's fine, but my style is a bit different than that. First Place asks if there was opportunities where the two of you got to be players in a game together.
Not very often. I think only like once or twice where we were in a game where we were both players. We worked well together. I mean, first of all, we both believe in team playing in RPGs. That's the best. If you're looking to succeed in some adventure, you want teamwork. But I think only once or twice that we played together as players.
Well, there we are. Well, if anyone else has any other questions for Kevin, I think it would be the time to do it. We're running on 2.5 hours now, and we probably are going to.
Because I was really only here for like an hour and a half.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm so sorry. I don't know what the hell was going on.
No, it's okay. Trust me, this is not the first technical difficulties I've had in this series. In fact, it happens quite often. So that's okay.
Yeah, well, why did it have to happen? I mean, we talked for 15 minutes before everything went awry. The minute the show started.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? But
yeah,
there we go. That's sometimes that's how it goes. So, in short, here you go. The final boss and Boom Gun together, awesome. Legion of Myth. Thank you, Legion of Myth, by the way, for helping me get in touch with Kevin. We really appreciate that. Have a good evening.
Yeah, for sure.
I like I said, I just really wanted to bring attention to people some of whom might not have known a lot about Erick Wujcik's life and work, and just to commemorate him this particular weekend, so that because tomorrow would have been his birthday.
Well, Erick did a lot. I mean, the Ambercons that turned into
they were huge in their time. Yeah,
it was huge. To use the vernacular of today, it pretty much went viral.
Yeah.
Where there were at one point, I think there were like 100 different Ambercons across the globe. Australia, England, Germany, all over the place.
It was an incredibly popular game. It was just remarkable because it was also an incredibly unusual game. That
yes.
In some ways, almost every RPG is basically derived from D&D, whether closer or further away. Like obviously,
yes.
the Palladium RPG is your take on that same concept.
Yep.
But something like West End Games Star Wars is also still derived. Vampire the Masquerade is also still derived. But what Erick did by removing the dice and changing the kind of the way the mechanics work is really one of the most original concepts of an RPG that is so different from kind of the standard format,
Well, and I loved it because a lot of other so-called diceless games just replace the dice with some other physical
else.
cards or a coin that you flip or whatever. And, Erick and I talked a lot about as he was developing Amber. And I love that, no, it's truly diceless. You don't need deck of cards or a quarter or anything else. It's the mechanics is what makes it diceless. And like I said, I think it's a great concept. If it has a weakness, I think it really requires a strong game master and players who get it and try to follow the rules. But in fact, he wanted me to publish it, and the only reason I didn't is that we were really, especially at the time, pushing that we had one game system, and this was such a unique and strong game system. I thought it would confuse that message. So instead, I helped Erick.
Probably would have, yeah.
I helped Erick, form his company, and he used the printer that I use and all that. And Erick was just an influential guy. I think he inspired a lot of people, not just you and me.
Oh yeah.
And, he was always like, for me, he was just always kind of that guy behind the scenes. Like Erick's the guy who introduced me to Kevin Long. Erick discovered him at the Center for Creative Studies art show, which is a art school here in Detroit. And then when I got Robotech, he's like, Kev, I know the perfect guy. And he was right. And Kevin Long was the perfect guy for that. And that created a long friendship. And, Erick's the guy who came up with the title for Rifts, because they're originally supposed to be called Boomers. And then an anime came out with these very popular anime, Bubblegum Crisis, and the villains were called Boomers. And I sat back and went, well, that'll cause confusion, I think. And I'm like, Erick, I don't know what I'm going to do. And he's like, and he was already living in Asia at this time. And he's like, Kev, tell me about it. So I tell him about it. And I'm like, yeah, there's Rifts this, and people travel to the Rifts, and the Rifts do that, and the coming of the Rifts, and the Rifts. And he's like, yeah, call it Rifts World. And I'm like, I don't like that. Well, just call it Rifts. And I'm like, maybe I'll use it as a working title. A year and a half later, I couldn't think of calling it anything but Rifts, right?
Yeah. Well, it was. I think that was a better title than Boomers.
Oh, absolutely.
So, Sam Basco here says, we need a way to reach out to Kevin when we have Palladium questions. Do you have some way that you're like, do you have a Facebook page or a mailing list or something?
And then not really. I'm so busy. It's hard for me to be answering like a lot of gamer questions.
I can understand that. Yeah.
Sorry. You can try sending stuff through the help desk on our website, but
there you go.
Again, it's like a matter of finding time.
So I really do appreciate that you managed to take the time for this. I'm very grateful.
You're very, very welcome. It's my pleasure. I love talking about Erick and gaming and game design. And anytime you ever want me back on some other subject and or Erick again or whatever, I'm happy.
Great. I really appreciate that. And I'm glad to have you here also. As like I said, you're one of my heroes in terms of game designers, and
thank you.
The stuff that you did was just fantastic, and it shows that like so many of the companies that made RPG, like think about all the ones that were around in the 80s. I mean, how many are left? You and Chaosium, right? I think that's it's crazy that
Steve Jackson. That's about it.
Yeah, Steve Jackson games. Yeah, you're right. You're right about that. Yeah, but it's very few and far, that ran the whole race, So it's great.
Well, and then I think it's great to have shows like what you have, and why we're doing sort of the history of Palladium on our YouTube channel, because we're all getting older, and how much time do we have left? I enjoyed that aspect at the page, Philadelphia area gaming expo. They brought in like a ton of people from the old D&D days, and Bob Watts of Grenadier. It seems unfair to say of Grenadier because he's done so much. The guy's amazing, and it's like, people are starting to look back and go, wow, we want to know more about these guys. And we don't have Gary Gygax or Dave or Keith Parkinson or lots of these guys who are creative juggernauts to have conversations with and hear how things were done or what inspired them, or so I think it's great we're doing things like this. Thank you for having me, Pundit, and you have a great rest of your evening.
All right, so guys, I guess we're gonna wrap it up here. Thank you so much, all of you who've been watching and people who are going to watch afterwards. Yeah, that's right. Folks like Wujcik only come along every once so often. That's very true.
That's for sure.
So thank you all for joining us in this. This was, as I said, a special edition. Usually I only do one of these per month. This is the second one I did this month because I did the regular one, and now I did this one specifically as this homage. But it's been great. And hopefully next time that we do this, we'll be able to keep you on continuously, but we'll see how it goes. There's always something or other that happens.
And I braved the storm. I braved 8 inches of snow.
Yeah. But I appreciate that you kept coming back. That's so other people might have given up. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me on.
All right, guys, that's everything for today. The next Pundit encounter is going to be, what is it going to be? It's going to be, I think, on the 22nd of February, if I'm not mistaken here. In 4 weeks anyways. Yeah, the 22nd of February. So stay tuned for that. We'll see who the guests will be later on. And thanks again to everyone. If you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, please check it out. Like I was saying before, the channel has a combination of, well, these live streams, my podcast, basically, Pundit Encounter, plus reviews of RPGs that I have quite a lot of. I keep getting more books to review, and notes on how to DM or how to design games. And of course, the most popular ones are rants where I'm complaining about what's going on in the industry today. Those ones always get the most views. So be sure to check that out. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button on this live stream if you can to help the algorithm. And check out all my products. Check out Palladium books. I'm sure you guys are going to find between the two a lot of excellent stuff to add to your collection of RPG goods. That's everything for today. Currently smoking or just finished smoking Lorenzetti Solitario Volcano plus Argento Latakia. Take care, everyone.